You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Welcome back to Last Call. This is Caroline Lamb, joined by Erica and Scott. And today we are talking about geography, but in the world of hemp-derived THC beverages. We are looking at a map that was published in Brian Roth's piece for Sightlines, titled Drawing Lines. It's highlighting the emerging regional patterns that are shaping who's buying Delta 8 and Delta 9 drinks and what that means for brand strategy. So the spoiler here is that it's not just the coastal Gen Zers who are embracing these types of drinks, believe it or not. In fact, in the South, it is quietly becoming an engine of growth. And that's largely because recreational cannabis is not legal there. What's fascinating in this region is the adoption across age groups, especially among people in their 40s and 60s, many of them parents who are reaching for THC beverages to relax, manage pain, or replace their nightly glass of wine. Meanwhile, in the Midwest, the numbers are lagging for younger consumers, and that's likely because they were actually the first state in the Midwest to legalize recreational cannabis. So 20 and 30 somethings are very comfortable walking into a dispensary and buying the real thing, if you will. So there's also a gender story. Women under 30 have outpaced men in cannabis use since 2021, yet men still dominate the use in the Northeast and the West. But that's changing, especially in the South and the Midwest, where moms in particular are emerging as an unexpected user base. So as this category matures, I'm wondering how brands can localize their messaging, because it seems that maybe Middle America has been overlooked as a place of real potential for these brands.
I could not agree more. Right there, for me, there are kind of two big takeaways for any beverage professional who might work with what I'll call a traditional product, be it beer, wine, or spirits. Right. It's not acceptable these days any longer to bury one's head in the sand and think that these are niche products. This research, as well as lots of others, have pointed that these products have broad-based appeal. What's really interesting is, while these have kind of what I'll call universal appeal, that appeal, as this research points out, is not evenly distributed across geographies. So it's quite possible that if you are in a geography like the Northeast, right, and you are used to selling wines and spirits to an older demographic, you might not be as affected, because Delta 8, Delta 9 products are over-indexed for folks in their 20s and 30s that are higher earning and a little bit more male leaning. So, knowing this, knowing that there's this kind of stratified consumption across different ages, genders, household income levels, right? It is so important to understand that your digital marketing cannot just be monolithic in its messaging, right? It needs to be targeted not toward geography, and not just toward a certain age group, but toward certain messages delivered to those age groups, those demographics, those psychographics.
So I found this article and the regional breakdown totally fascinating because, there's such a story here of different demographics and the appeal of these products varying so tremendously across age and across income level. So if you look at the West, for example, you've got 20s and 30 somethings who are high earning using these products. And then if you look to the Northeast, you have the same demographic, 20s and 30s, high earning, right? But then you go to different regions of the US. So in the upper Midwest, we're looking at 40s and 50 somethings, low earning, as being the key demographic for these products. And then in the in the Southeast and Texas, we're looking at middle earners in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, right? So that's just such a huge, broad demographic spread. And I think, the interesting thing there is like, what do you do when your overall brand has to appeal across so many different audiences? Well, I think that you need to look to CPG brands. It could be, the Cokes and the Pepsis, or energy drinks like Celsius and Red Bull. I would be looking to these brands that have massive, valuations and market caps, and like big developed brands that reach many audiences successfully. I would be looking at that as like the brand top level. Create a brand that does not offend anyone and create a brand that feels like neutral but relevant, right? And then from there, you really do, as Scott was saying, have to develop out a marketing and messaging strategy that is going to be very targeted to the buyers of this product in whatever region you're in. So the campaigns that you ran in the upper Midwest may fall flat in the Southeast. And I think, we know that generally that, not everything works in every market, but I think that having this data from Sightlines definitely helps paint a picture. And I think it's probably hard for people to visualize. So we will link to this in our show notes and in our social media promoting this segment. But I think for anyone who is a THC entrepreneur, it is crucial information to really start to contextualize the different regional differences. And I think there's a lot to dive into. So kudos to Sightlines for this great report.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us on the Business of Drinks. Please follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tap the notification button so you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. Rate us with our star ratings and share on social. Finally, if there's any questions, topics, concerns, please reach us. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, or in our email at podcast@businessofdrinks.com. Talk to you soon.